Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. That finished faster than I thought it would. Well, we are still in the midst of some pretty strong geopolitical instability. Let's come in and take a look at the charts, see where we're at. Reminder that today is Tuesday, so we get to stay a little bit longer. Maybe we'll do some programming. I don't know. We'll see what you guys think. Well, let's start with oil, since I have it up. Yesterday, oil was just super crazy. But towards the end of the day, Donald Trump said that they're almost done. That they're ahead of schedule and they're almost done. Okay. Oil took a huge plunge as a result. Now, it seems a little bizarre to me that kind of almost seemingly offhand comment from Donald Trump affected the market so much, when, as far as I understand, the strait was never closed. I mean, I don't think the strait was ever closed. So that says to me, this was mostly speculation. This is speculators. We're not really seeing the impacts of, like, the supply glut. We will, but I don't think that we've really seen it yet. What that means oil does in the short term, I'm not sure. I guess it means it could do either or, but probably continue to see some big volatility for sure. Here's the treasury. So the treasury's recovered quite a bit from that. But, I mean, look, we want to get all the way back up to these, like, 113, 114s. It's a long ways up. And at the moment, they're kind of selling. And even though oil isn't coming back up, we are seeing the treasury sell here a little bit, as Iran and the U.S. are kind of taking pot shots at each other on social media and the news and so forth. So here's the S&P 500. You can see also big recovery, but starting to turn down here this morning. Gold and silver. Whew. Well, gold seems okay. Silver seems okay. Copper recovered yesterday's declines. Japanese yen still down. So we are still in possible blah, 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 blah. I read the comment and it completely broke my train of thought. I am so sorry. We are still in possible intervention zone in the yen. So keep an eye out for that. Japanese yen is a place where policymakers have intervened before. Remember this whole big thing over here? That was the intervention. So we're back down there. They might do something. This one, I don't even think they spent the money. I think all they did was they said they did stuff. All right. And then Bitcoin, recovering a little bit back to 70K. Seems okay. Okay. What is your opinion on IFVG? Well, I think that FVG stands for fair value gap, but I don't know where you getting the I. They're changing the acronyms on us again, guys. Hold on a second. Okay, Iran is launching missile attacks on Israel, it sounds like. I don't think this is over. All right, so here is a 5-minute chart of the S&P 500. So we get lots of nice little, gaps. And people would say, okay, so here's a fair value gap. So if they get back down to that and then they cross it and then maybe they will reverse or all of these sorts of things. Well, I have the greatest fair value gap indicator out there. Bar none. It's not even close. If you go to speculatorseth.com and you can try in NinjaTrader for 10 days, my NinjaTrader package. After that, it's $200 for a lifetime license. Here is a fair value gap. I'm going to add it to the chart. And so what it does is it extends the gap until it's been closed. And what do we see about fair value gaps? Some fair value gaps get closed and some don't. So, in the inverted fair value gaps. Okay, so the places that aren't the fair value gap? I don't know. Okay. Well, either way, I believe that fair value gaps are really just a case of selection bias. When you look at how often fair value gaps are actually created and the behavior that comes off of them is seemingly random. So what gurus do is they'll find a place where price turned, whatever it is that they think it is, that it's supposed to do. In this case, here we had a line, it bounced off of it. We had a fair value gap was created from here, right? They came right back to it. Oh, look, it bounced. It bounced, right? Yeah, but why didn't it bounce at this one? Why didn't it bounce at this one? This one, this one, this one, this one, right? It's just not. Is a price completely random? Well, so it's not completely random, but it is what we call a martingale. So what does a martingale mean? Martingale means that the best estimate of the future price is the current price. Basically means that there's not anything contained within the price history that is very effective at predicting the future price movement. Okay. So there are behaviors in here that are different from random. Okay. For instance, volatility, right? We tend to underperform implied volatility. That is, the options will say that the market's going to go yay far, and then we don't go that far, right? So that's a behavior that's not random. Another big one is square root law. So if you trade a certain amount and it moves, you trade X amount and it moves Y amount. You trade 2X amount, it doesn't move 2Y amount. It moves the square root of 2Y amount, which is 1.41468 something. So there are behaviors that are different from random, but these behaviors in and of themselves, and you can make money from them. And that's why a lot of these products, like options, for instance, are structured the way that they are, so that people can take advantage of those statistical inefficiencies. But they're not very effective at predicting where the stock market is going to be 30 minutes from now, or an hour from now, or a day from now. Something that is effective at predicting where the markets will be in the short term is breaking news. Things like what are commodities trading advisors doing? So that's actually, I totally forgot about this. I'm going to close this now. No, I'm not going to close it. I'm going to minimize it. We got to come back over here. If we come and we look at a daily chart on the S&P 500, we're below most of the moving averages. Yesterday, we recovered the 200-day. But once you get into that kind of period where we're below the moving averages, the commodities trading advisors love to sell it. So in most scenarios, commodities trading advisors are selling. The momentum strategies say sell. And not just sell, but it's like some of the most extreme sell amounts that we've ever seen. So that doesn't guarantee that we're going to sell. I think that how the Iran war and all of that this morning goes is probably going to be the determining factor. But that is one flow that's coming through that's a pretty strong sell. Okay. Come and look at the treasuries. don't know what we're going to do in the treasuries. So those are the sorts of things that I, on a day trading basis, that I would be looking at. Predictors of order flow. Then you can kind of combine all of the predictors of order flow, and that can give you a pretty good estimate of what's going to happen. But just looking at the past price history and, you know, trying to figure out what it's going to do based off of that, complete folly. There has never been any kind of, what would we say, thorough statistical proof that any such patterns exist. And many, many people, including myself, have tested these programmatically, and they're not profitable. They have periods of profitability. After COVID, there was a period of profitability for things including fair value gaps. But it seems like that the larger public picked up on it, and it stopped working. Nick Sean, never heard of him. Never heard of him. Well, there was quite a bit of activity when I first came down at the computer, but the treasuries look relatively quiet at the moment. I think, well, when I came in here, I was thinking that we buy the treasuries, that they should continue to move up. But I've been hearing on my news squawk that they've been attacking Israel again, and Hegseth is saying, you know, we're continuing to push, or we're not done until we're done. Yeah. Tasnim reports 6 minutes ago, Iran launches missile attacks on Israel. Starmer spoke to leaders of Germany and Italy on Monday, agreed to work closely together on freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz in the face of Iranian threats. The Strait of Hormuz will either be a strait of peace and prosperity, or will be a strait of defeat and suffering for warmongers. So I find this interesting thing. I tell you what, man. There's these guys in the Discord that just drive me fucking crazy. Because they are so anti-US and really like going into like pro-Iran sort of stuff, that I some of the things they say are almost comical to me. They think the USA will run out of ammo before they run out of targets. I don't think that's true. I think that the US probably has more missiles than Iran has missile launchers. Can you prove that? Have you actually seen an empirical? So I'm using a really big word. I don't know if it, you kind of seem like maybe English is not your first language, but you speak really good English. So, but empirical, I'm using a big word, and I'm not using that big word to scare people or anything. I use that word because it is the gateway to deeper knowledge about the markets. Okay. Empirical means that it can be seen with observation. So a lot of things like, you know, when we think, how is the world? We can use things like deduction and induction, which is like, well, I know that X is true and I know that Y is true. And so because of those things, that must mean that Z is true. Right? But empiricism is saying, okay, well, you think that based on logic that Z should be true, but is it actually true? Let's go and actually measure and see in the real world, do we actually see that thing? That's empirical. Other people, anybody can go in and look at it and say, let's go and collect data from the real world. Like if you're talking about science, we can go and we can measure things in science, right? We're talking about the markets. It's the same thing. We can come in and we can measure the markets and we can look at these behaviors and we can collect all this data and see if the data matches the claims. And that is empiricism. That is in looking at the empirical data, right? So have you seen empirical data that suggests that there are patterns or certain levels which they react to? What does react mean? You see what I mean? Most gurus will say things very vaguely so that you can't prove them empirically wrong. But if we're talking about levels, there actually are a couple of levels that the market does quote unquote react to. And when I say react, what I mean is that the behavior of the market changes once we cross those thresholds. One is daily highs and lows. So if we set like an overnight high and low, and then later on we come and we breach those levels, market seems to react to that pretty strongly. And you tend to see an increase in activity and an increase in volatility when we cross those levels. There is also these lines that you can see on my chart. These are lines based on what the options are pricing as the range for the day. So when we get to those levels, it tends to be very difficult for the market to breach through them. And if we are having a volatile day, like there's a really good reason for them to bust through them, then we see an increase in volatility. So those are another ones. Then another level, as I had just described, is these moving averages. Both when you cross above and below the moving average, and when the moving average itself changes from rising to falling and falling to rising, etc. There are many portfolio level strategies that will change what they do. So you want to keep an eye on those. You have a custom time frame option? No, I do have the volatility levels thing. Do have a version of that on TradingView. Unfortunately, we found a more effective way to measure what the volatilities are pricing for volatility. And that one, because of the way that it works, only works on NinjaTrader. And good morning, Uzi. What are you doing? I worked out hard yesterday and I'm sore. You tired? Dude, the daylight savings time sucks. Takes 10 days. Takes 10 days to adjust. I got to bed at a good, reasonable time yesterday, though, so there's that. That was good. One time ICT called out an all-time. Okay, now do that 10,000 times, and then you might have the statistical rigor enough to prove that that's not just luck. I call out levels all the time, pretty much every day. I don't call them out, but I tell you what, that volatility thing, that holds more often than it doesn't. Today would probably be one of those situations where we're likely to breach it. But Kevin, how are you doing? I was a little bit concerned because you weren't the first person to say anything. It was Ray. Ray was the first one. He got firsties. Check out AMD PO3 callback level. Well, we'd have to backtest it. I feel like I'm too lazy to pull that up right now. They're saying I heard. I assume it was Iran, but I didn't hear the first part of that. But the news squawk said they launched 8 ballistic missiles, and 1 fell into the sea. Okay. So answer me this. What do you think of these guys that think the USA will run out of ammo? That seems so crazy to me. I think the United States is spending more munitions than they want. They're definitely coming in here and saying we need to ramp up production of these and everything, but they're not going to run out. Not anywhere closer. It might be like, well, but then we don't have enough for if there was another conflict or something like that. Oh, the UAE intercepted 8 ballistic missiles and 1 fell into the sea. See, like I keep getting this thing that's like Iran is you know, the US is in too deep and yada yada yada. I don't think so. I think that Iran is pretty much impotent right now, but that it has dug itself in so deep that it's pretty hard to dislodge the regime purely through airstrikes. So you can only do so much through airstrikes. Hopefully protests and everything, the people rise up and overthrow the theocratic government. Doesn't seem like the U.S. has the heart to put boots on the ground, which is what would be necessary for that. And the price of oil is just going bonkers, even though the strait is supposedly not closed and all of these things. Everybody's too afraid to go through. One boat went through, I think. Maybe it eases today, but everybody's afraid, and that kind of hurts. And it seems to me, because Donald Trump yesterday was saying, like, we're almost done. That to me was Trump chickening out. Am I wrong? I mean, I don't really know what's going on, but to me, I felt like, is he chickening out? Price of oil is too high. He's getting a little bit concerned now. But I think what might happen is boats start going through the strait. We can see that the strait is still open. Everything's fine. And the U.S. continues strikes on Iran. You know? $100 barrel oil makes him nervous. They're already going to get shellacked for midterms. I think it's too early for me to be making predictions about midterms, but as the situation is right now, I think you're correct that midterms wouldn't look very good. So it's pretty common for the president to lose in the midterms. The amount of like winning that the Democrats can actually do in the midterms is limited, partly because it's just not a very good map for them this year, partly because even though Americans might not like what's going on, they really don't like the Democrats. But in general, I think that it would be, Democrats would probably take the House if midterms were to happen today. I've actually seen some things. So like there was this polling out yesterday showing like the favorable, unfavorable for various Democrats and stuff. They are seriously underwater. It was actually quite shocked. Like, of course you'd expect them to be underwater, but they were way underwater in favorability ratings. So I wouldn't say that it's like the midterms are a complete loss. But if you were to get $100 barrel oil and it stayed that way until the midterms, then you're definitely going to get like good grief, right? So yeah, I think that the market was reading that as like, oh, well, Donald Trump kind of crashed and this is what they do all the time, frankly, right? There's this line and everybody's like, don't cross this line. And then he crosses the line and everybody flips out and then he steps back over it. Right? That's what he does. on the other hand, I'm kind of sitting here like, okay, but like, are you really going to go that far? And then just be like, okay, like mission accomplished. Like, fine. I mean, because in my mind, how have we really damaged Iran's ability to get a nuclear weapon? Can somebody show me that? But what do I know? I'm just a warmonger. What's this? From Lucas Olejnik. Lucas Olejnik. Amazon is holding a mandatory meeting about AI breaking its systems. The official framing is part of normal business. The briefing note describes a trend of incidents with high blast radius caused by generative AI-assisted changes for which best practices and safeguards are not yet fully established. Translation to human language, we gave AI to engineers and things keep breaking. The response for now, junior and mid-level engineers can no longer push AI-assisted code without a senior engineer signing off. How is that not the standard already? We can never push code without somebody else looking at it. Oh, well, whatever. AWS spent 13 hours recovering after its own AI coding tool, asked to make some changes, and decided instead to delete and recreate the environment. The software equivalent of fixing a leaky tap by knocking down the wall. Amazon called that an extremely limited event. The affected tool served customers in mainland China. Oh, so the thing that every engineer warned about when the AI started becoming a thing happened? Don't get me wrong, I love the AI. I find it really, really useful. But I'm super nervous about just letting it do things. Like, a lot of people want to just vibe code it, right? Like, you can come in and say, I'm going to approve you for all commands. You can just do whatever you want to do. Don't do that. Okay, if it's like connected to a production system, don't do that. I'll let it connect to a production system to collect information. That's really, really useful. But I approve every command to make sure that is a read command. It is not actually changing something. Right? And I've vibe coded some like major changes, but you still got to go through it with a fine tooth comb, and I think you kind of got to be cautious about what kind of things you do that with. So that it's gone out of control at Amazon, kind of interesting. It was Elon Musk retweeting that, by the way. Yeah, Bloomberg opinion, the fact that Iran chose Mojtaba Khamenei, the guy who fought in the Iran-Iraq war with the IRGC, that's regime consolidation. Yes. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, who had attended an event hosted by the PMML political outfit of Pakistani terrorist outfit Lashkar Taiba as a chief guest in Pakistan, has been killed in an Israeli drone strike in Lebanon when he was traveling with a Hezbollah terrorist. breaking news. No stupid questions. Why do people get angrier at someone using welfare than at a corporation avoiding millions of tax using loopholes? I am not going to answer that. Not on Reddit, but I'll answer it here on the stream because I'm stupid. Because corporations produce things. They pay people. Their profit goes to investors. That increases GDP. When you pay somebody welfare, it's just complete sunken cost. Well, it's not complete sunken cost. Because if that welfare helps them get back on their feet and gets them to being a producing member of society, then it's not a sunken cost. Right? And there are some people that they just can't, they have disabilities or whatever, and then welfare is a needed thing. And having the welfare does improve the society overall. Like there's actually is a financial cost that you have to pay, right? But when able-bodied people don't work and they are on welfare for long periods of time, then that is a sunken cost, and that's money lost in the economy. And that's why they get upset, because they have to work. They have to go and do things. And then there are some people, and frankly, there are like able-bodied immigrants, for instance, that completely live off of welfare and things like that, and get, in some cases, make more than people that are working hard. And yeah, that upsets people. Yes, it upsets people. So we are moving up in the treasuries a little bit. We've moved about 15K now. It's an iceberg there at 18, so that kind of puts us in an interesting place. Regular session plus 1 sigma at 21 kind of seems like a good target. Maybe we could go long here on the expectation that we could get like 21 or 20.5. I'm looking over at the Japanese yen. So the yen seems to be correlated with this. In fact, there was like a big buy in the yen, and when the yen moved up like that, there was a big buy in the treasuries. So some evidence, perhaps, that intervention is coming in the Japanese yen, and that's why they're buying the treasuries. Perhaps. Another thing is that we are getting a little bit of steepening throughout the session. You can see that the 30-year has, well, I'll come over here. The 30-year here is selling, and the 10-year is buying, so that is causing the steepening here. So kind of have to keep that in mind, what we see on the 30-year. But I think we're probably okay. So let's I think this is enough. To take a tepid little long here. Don't let me get too distracted. I need to keep my eyes here. They hate the corporos, but where do they think welfare dollars ultimately go? Dude, this is something that is just so hilarious to me, right? It's not hilarious to me, but it's just so weird to me that people don't understand this. That, like, yeah, you give money to people, and then what do? They spend it, and the companies make profit. They're just milking you. So if the government came in and they said, we're going to give all of you $1,000 worth of the S&P 500 in a tax advantaged account that we're going to give you. But that you can spend, that you can do whatever you want with. Right? That would be a different thing. Now you're actually giving people an asset that grows over time and helps the economy grow. Probably if they did that overall, it might have some crazy effects, because then the market would go up big time on the government buying the shares, and then a lot of people would probably sell right away. It would be a bad idea. Okay, but like the whole point is, you got money. You want as much of that money to go into developing things, into producing more goods and services and making the economy stronger. You want as much of that to go into productive uses as possible. Now, all that money is going to go into, there might be some ventures. They spend a lot of money on a venture, and then it's a bad venture and it doesn't work out, right? That's why we have the banks distribute the money, because the banks are good at saying, okay, who is the most likely to be able to actually generate a return on this money? Fortunately, it turns out to be the people that already have money. So I would like to see more things done to provide more opportunity for people to get business loans or to get investment. And I would like to see programs that target people that aren't looking to do a startup, that are like, hey, you have a skill, you do something, you could start a business with that, and you just don't know that it's even a possibility for you or what to do. And so we're going to train you how to do it and teach you how to do it and walk you through it. And we need more of that, because that's going to be the thing that gets more of that money into productive uses, right? But if you just give people money and then they go and they buy TVs with it, then it just goes through one cycle and it's back into the corporations. And it's just like, what was the point? Producers always win, even with a stupid UBI. You make nothing, you are nothing. Yeah, I really don't think UBI is going to work. The whole tech sphere is under this spell that they think that UBI is coming, and that if you are not a multi-millionaire within the next 5 years, then you'll be stuck in the permanent underclass. You'll live on UBI, but you won't really be able to do much with your life after that. And it is because they are, by and large, leftists living in California, and they want UBI. And so that's why it's not because that's like the most likely thing to happen or would be the most, productive and best thing for humanity. I think that it would be a real disaster. But like, the thing is, average person's interaction with the market is the labor market. They work and they get paid for that work, the number of hours that they spend. And so the average person really can't conceive of anything else, right? There can be a world, there can be an economy that's not just based on labor. Because they're victims of a really terrible state and local economic and social policies. Yeah, I mean, California really is getting bad, isn't it? Turns out when the government makes you poor, you start to think they can make you rich. Well, I don't know if they think that the government can. I mean, like, I think the heart of it really, like, when it ultimately comes down to it, I think that humans have an inbuilt desire for equality. And when I say equality, I mean, like, everybody has the same amount of stuff. So when they see their neighbor has all of these great things, and they're working just as hard as their neighbor, they're contributing just as much as their neighbor, how come they don't get those things? And people get jealous. And this is a built-in, from evolution. Like, when you're in a tribe, did you have a reason for everybody to contribute? If you've got people in the tribe that aren't contributing, then that's basically a leech on your labor, right? So that goes back to the welfare thing. People don't like it when they're seeing somebody else not contributing when they can. But they also, on the split side, get upset when they see somebody else has more than them, because that kind of suggests to them that that other person is leeching off of their labor, right? And some people are more prone to this than other people are. And the people that are the most prone to that unequalness in economic, they tend to turn towards socialism. They seem to think, well, but if we just pay everybody the same or whatever, like, it get everybody equal. But then you go and you implement the thing that's supposed to do that, that's supposed to make this stateless society, and it doesn't work. Why not? Because the reality is that some things are more productive than other things. Some people are more productive than other people. There are certain things the economy needs that are more important than other things. And kind of paradoxically, some of those things that are necessary for the economy, or rather, some of the things that aren't very necessary for the economy are things that are still very necessary for society, like school teachers. Shouldn't school teachers be paid more? Well, you would think yes, but based on the laws of supply and demand, no. So then teachers don't get paid very much, even though they're doing a very, very important thing. And it would be nice if we pay them more so that we could get better teachers and everybody would be better, right? But then, is that economically viable? Probably not. You kind of have to find this balance, which is like, okay, here's what the market needs. And then we kind of decide on our own, what are the things that we think are important we should invest in and put money into. School teachers aren't necessary anymore. I don't agree. I think that we spend too much time looking at tiny rectangles of distraction. I think that we have taken online interactions about as far as they can go, and many of the problems that we are having right now are because there are things that are lacking in that. And while some people might be good at being able to read an online course and learn on their own, I think that I'm really, really good at that. Other people are not. And I think that there are things that are lost when you're not there with the teacher. That there's not this kind of... and there's some problems with the school system as it is today too, because I really think that there should be sort of like a mentorship kind of relationship with your teachers, and that's not necessarily common in the school system, right? So for instance, laptops at school. I don't think we should have laptops at school. Or not. I think that every student should have a laptop, but I don't think that everything should be done on a laptop. I think that most written assignments should be written. You should be forced to write it with a pencil. I'm telling you, man, there's stuff that the brain does when you're writing that makes you smarter. Because you're thinking about what you have to say, and at the same time you're associating it with the movement, and it's a complex movement, and you have to look at, okay, what direction the pencil is moving and stopping at the right spot and all of these sorts of things. Makes you smarter. Try it. Go right. Where's my book? Oh, it's over there. I got this book that's like Learn Italic, and I've gone in and I've done it, and my handwriting used to always be terrible, and it's way better now. And part of it is getting the right pen and the right paper and all of these sorts of things. And I will do it 30 minutes to an hour and then go to bed. And during that whole time, try to avoid looking at my phone. And I get better sleep. I feel sharper. It's a good thing. And we are robbing our children of having the same quality of school that I had when I was a kid, because we think that it can all be digital. And we're robbing people of community because we think that it can all be digital. Well, something like 40% of kids can't read, and it ain't because teachers don't make enough money. That's true. There's not any correlation that I've seen between how much money you pay the teachers. I tell you what, so this is, it kind of gets a little bit more controversial here, perhaps, but I mean, it is obviously the biggest determinant of like how well a student is going to do academically is how involved their parents are, right? But the way that this school is doing things lately, I find make it hard for the parent to be involved. Well, so for starters, it's on a laptop, right? It's all done on a computer, so that kind of changes the way that you can interact with things. And then they keep changing the curriculum, so they're doing a way of teaching that I'm not familiar with. You've got to this whole thing that's like, okay, we found this new method of teaching that research says is more effective, and now we're just going to push it everywhere. And we're going to completely redo the school system based around this new system. That stupid idea. We are talking about an ecosystem. You can't just completely redo the ecosystem and expect things to work out, right? Make small changes, make small little changes so that people can keep up with it. Because it's not helpful. The parents come in and they're trying to help the kids with the math, and it's a completely different math than what they learned. Doesn't help. And that makes it like increasingly more difficult. Like, I remember my parents had a really good handle on what assignments were due and making sure that I did my schoolwork and was on top of it. And when I try doing that with my kids, you just can't keep up. And maybe part of that is on the kids, but man, It's rough. And then you get into this situation where it's like the kids don't care, you know? And then they don't do well. Weren't our schools designed to make factory workers? Well, I mean, that's a different issue, right? The school system does not necessarily reward creativity, but how do you teach that in mass? I don't think that anybody's ever figured that out. But there's still something to that, like writing, like having to write something out, an essay or whatever the paper is, right? That's the first thing. And then having to actually write it out on paper is another thing. Those things, that's exercising the brain, right? What's happening is we're expecting these kids to be able to do all of the same amazing things that we've done without the same exercise. It's like expecting somebody to be able to go into the gym and squat 500 pounds by going to the gym once a week. Yeah, it's not going to happen. You have to exercise a certain amount to be able to accomplish those great things. And a lot of these kids aren't getting that mental exercise. Because you don't have to write it down manually, and then you use ChatGPT for everything, and then you're doing the bare minimum possible all of the time, and yeah, you don't develop the brain the same. If you took the digital away from the teachers, they'd probably flee the profession en masse. Well, so everything that I've heard has been that teaching has become progressively worse. So when I was in school, I always wanted to do whatever was the highest level class. Like there's the AP classes and the honor classes and all of those things. And maybe part of that is because I like a challenge, but at the time, it was kind of more, I wanted to get away from the degenerate kids. Because in those classes that everybody is forced to take, like especially those first year classes, I hated being in those classes. So you just have these absolute degenerate idiots screw off the whole time and disrupt the class the whole time. And disrupt other students, and yeah, I hated it so much. And my understanding is that is just only expanded, like it's only gotten worse, and that teachers have a very difficult time keeping control in the class and all of these sorts of things. And I honestly, I think some of that is that you spend the whole time plugged into a rectangle of distraction. So the problem I'm having in my house right now is that some of the kids are having a very difficult time waking up. And so I think what's happening is, you know, everybody goes to bed, but like they're old enough, they're supposed to be self-directed. And so they go and they get in bed and then they browse on the internet on their phone until 2 a.m. and then they can't wake up. That's what I think is happening. And so it's turned into, okay, well, I know that you need the phone for your alarm, but we're just going to get you an alarm clock and then you have to give us the phone. So I was like, we should have a ceremony of the taking away of the phones. But I asked ChatGPT about it yesterday. What did it say I should call it? I can't remember what it said I should call it. It was like Here, I'm gonna look it up. No, not that one. Yes, okay. Oh yes, the sacred surrender of the phones. This is what ChatGPT said I should call it. Children of the household, the hour grows late. The blue light fades, the scroll must end. May your dreams be free of notifications. May your minds wander without Wi-Fi. And may tomorrow's battery be full. This is what ChatGPT said the sacred surrender of the phone should be. And it says, oh yeah, and then it described this whole thing, because I told it, like, describe the ceremony of it, like, what it would be like, right? And it's saying, like, you should take the phone and put it into the phone charger and then say, rest now, small rectangle of distraction. So that's what I'm calling them now. Small rectangles of distraction. If we're going to have a factory government-funded system for learning that's effectively just a de facto daycare, make them computer centers and trim everything else, you're letting them liquefy their brains on video games and stuff. Well, so playing video games develops the brain. So, kind of depends on what they're doing in the games and what they're playing. Gaming has just taken the worst turn, right? Because most games are no longer about... I liked a game that was mechanically difficult. Let me tell you something. The physicality of things matters just as much as the thinking of things in terms of overall intelligence. Okay? You take two people, and one person spends all of their time in the books, and the other person, they work just as hard learning the math and things like that, but they also have a sport, and that second person is going to be smarter every time. And there's some pretty good research to show that, like, developing the nervous system outside of the brain is just as important. Okay. But when you're playing a game, like some of the older games like Quake or fighting games or real-time strategy games, those were hard, and they were mechanically difficult. And again, it's the same thing as writing, right? It's hand-eye coordination and all of this sort of stuff. You got to develop those things. And what gaming figured out was, if we have them do something that's completely brain-dead stupid, doesn't really require hardly any brain power at all, but then they get this big reward from it, and then we add on to it this inconsistent reinforcement mechanism, then people become addicted, and we make tons of money from people trying to buy loot boxes and all of these other sorts of things, right? So gaming in the past 10 years has taken a very, very terrible turn for the worst. And I think that your kids should play video games, but you should be very cautious about what games they play and how much time they're spending on it, right? Because if their whole time is playing some brain dead RPG that requires absolutely no strategy or thinking whatsoever, then yeah, it is gonna rot their brain. Play StarCraft, folks. That'll develop your brain. Play StarCraft Brood War. You asked AI if you should take the AI-capable device away from someone, and it said yes, almost would have expected it. Well, you don't give it the choice. You just say, describe what the religious ceremony of the taking away of the phones would be. It gave me some pretty funny stuff, I thought. The thing that I'm trying to think of, like, if I'm going to perform the ceremony of the sacred surrender of the phones, I think there needs to be a ceremonial hat. And I can't think of like what kind of ceremonial hat you could have. Right. I also had it going on different like treating certain memes as deity, right? May Harambe look over you in your slumber. Let us always remember Angry Cat, the patron saint of disapproval. And let us also remember Steve Irwin, who reminds us that the real world is greater than any phone screen. That's not how it said it. How did it say that? Ah. And the great explorer Steve Irwin, who reminds us the real world is wilder than any screen. I have a game. It came out called Over the Top World War One. Okay, so can I rant about something else? I think that you want, if it's a first-person shooter game, you want first-person shooter elements that are not just hit scan weapons. So most games kind of simplified down onto like Counter-Strike or whatever. You have a gun, and when you fire the gun, what the game is actually doing under the covers is it's saying that these bullets hit instantly and there's some sort of scatter and spray pattern. And so the game basically comes down to two things. One, how you control that spray pattern, and two, who starts shooting first. And so the Call of Duty-ification of first-person shooters, the result was that most video games become mostly a matter of reaction time. And games like Quake that had complex movement and projectile weapons that you could dodge required a lot more of people mechanically. Basically, when you take out the hit scan element, or at least make it less dominant, you end up with a game that's much more varied and provides more room for a tactical play. And you get smarter gamers as a result, basically. So I really hate the Call of Duty-ification of gaming too. No loot boxes, just World War I trench digging. Oh, well, that is some interesting elements. If you can dig a trench. Got them that Android. Google is trying to kill it. What? Google is trying to kill Android? What? No one should take a phone to bed with them regardless of age. Yeah. Well, come on. I think that almost everybody looks at their phone before they go to bed. But there is an hour at which you put it away and you go to sleep. And I think that my kids, they have the phone with them. They don't do that. So you have to force it on them. Uh-oh. We're losing all our profits. I'm going to put a hard stop on here. Watch them go right for it. I did hear the news squawk say something, but I didn't hear it. What they said. May just be the open. Now there was a game that I really enjoyed playing back in the day was called Red Orchestra. And in Red Orchestra was focused more on the Eastern Front of World War II rather than the Western Front. And on the Eastern Front, they only had semi-automatic and bolt-action weapons, and they didn't have a lot of these, Tommy guns and things like that. And in the game, they basically have it set up so if you get shot once, you're dead. And so you have to be very cautious and strategic about how you play. And you have to very much work as a team. And I loved that game. So that's maybe. But that's very different from the Call of Duty, right? It's kind of weird. There's like, I think that there's like this TTK versus tactics, right? And if the time to kill is really low, then you have high tactics, and then it kind of plummets down here, and then it goes back up. Right? And this is like Counter-Strike, COD, Apex, Quake. Actually, probably Quake is right here, and UT is up here. Unreal Tournament is more tactical than I think almost any other shooting game, apart from perhaps certain types of team games. I guess Overwatch, you put Overwatch in that category. It's more tactical, but then it's a team game, right? It sounds like that X is kind of pushing out its like currency or something, because Elon Musk reposted William Shatner. If you participate, you will get $1 from me and $25 as a welcome gift from X. You can connect a bank account to move money into the account at 6% yearly interest, set up a virtual debit card, spend that $25 while you order your physical metal debit card from the bank. It does sound like that's their payment platform / bank. Oh, Treasury's back up. That selling was on the short end. I'm not sure what caused that. Think I'm gonna get it? Think they're gonna film me? At the moment, I'm feeling greedy, and I'm like, well, we should go for the 21. Because it's a more even number of profit. So here we are. R/conservative. Pennsylvania schools will be required to teach cursive again starting in April. I think that maybe we should change how what we teach cursive, what cursive we teach. But I do think that you should teach cursive. There seems to be something about connecting the letters together and everything that you learn that has a benefit for your brain. No, I'm coming back again. So the S&P like took a real nosedive there, didn't it? That might be that. I mean, that's probably geopolitical headlines. I'm surprised I didn't hear anything come over the squawk or see anything. So, you know, it might be not everybody's aware of the news. Did I say little square of distraction? I don't know. It should be little rectangle of distraction, though, for sure. Yeah. Please surrender your little rectangles of distraction, please. Another place where you see this is like at some raves. They're like taking away phones or asking you to keep your phones away. Part of it is because people record it and then everybody feels like they've seen it on social media, so they don't need to go and see the concert. But part of it is also that then everybody just stands there on their phone instead of dancing and interacting. I was always taught, or not taught. I remember there was a study about this. There was a study that if you record something on your phone, you don't remember it as well. It's like your brain knows that it's been recorded and it doesn't need to remember it. And so you don't get the same experience when you record it. Ain't that interesting? Kind of like quantum physics, right? That measuring the thing changes the thing. Okay, well, I sure don't like losing 3 ticks all at once, but the treasuries still look buoyed here. I'm worried if it goes south that it's just going to be goodish all at once, right? Bitcoin's taking a bit of a hit here. That's curious. But the E-mini's still fighting it out. And we're still within the first 15 minutes, too. Okay. Ouch. Okay, so the headline is ExxonMobil has evacuated employees from operations in the Middle East. Could that be what's driving him? It could be. Except for that oil's not going up on that. I'm not quite sure what's going on in oil. Maybe they're just not trading oil anymore because it's become too volatile. I really think that whole thing yesterday suggests to me that the move in oil was primarily speculation. Croc Imagine is now #1 in image to video. Oof. Part of the issue here is that this decline has happened without a significant change in cumulative delta. And I am seeing the yen get hit here. Save me, Bank of Japan. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed to most vessels as the Middle East conflict enters its second week per Bloomberg. Effectively closed. I love the way that they word that.
Cell.
I love the way that they word that. Well, I'm gonna puke. Puked at break even. You know what? It was a good trade still. We got some good favorable excursion on that, and it never went against us. But I'm just watching the Japanese yen here, and I do not like what it's doing. Now, there's an iceberg there, so maybe that's the worst place to get out, but... Well, I was did pretty good at getting a good spot too, because like it came back to that spot, but it bounced off of it. What's this from r/UFOs? The 0-point energy has just been cracked, huh? Emergent quantization from a dynamic vacuum. We show that adding quadratic temporal dispersion to a dynamic vacuum acoustic model yields a fully analytic, exactly isospectral mapping to the hydrogenic column problem. Woo! No fucking clue what they just said. But apparently they think that that means that we have 0-point energy now. Direct experimental evidence that not only does the vacuum have structure, but that we can extract energy from it. He left NASA to start his own company, Casimir. He was on a Joe Rogan Experience describing the initial implementation in 2024, but it appears they had more success recently and have finally published their work and proof of the effect. Ashton Forbes has to be pooping his pants. Okay, so you know what I saw just before I came on the stream? 60 Minutes had an expose that some intelligence professionals in the United States purchased a weapon from Russian cartel members that was basically a pulse microwave device. It was a small device that can fit on a single person. You have like a backpack with a battery pack in it and a gun. And it shoots directed microwave pulses at people. And the key in this technology is the software that creates a certain type of pulse. And that's what is harmful to people. And it can, those pulses can activate neurons in the brain so that you feel like it's coming from inside your head, essentially. So I think that what happened was the Russian government created this microwave device, tested it on people, Americans at the Cuban embassy. They have, apparently, 60 Minutes has a video, but they can't release it because it's classified, of people being hit by, Americans being hit by the device. And so they took it. So I think that what must have happened was the U.S. purchased that thing, and then they went and they made their own gigantic version of it. And that's what they used in the raid on Maduro's compound. It's kind of weird that 60 Minutes was the way that they were talking about it. So now we know what it is. It is a directed microwave device, but it is the pulsing of the wave. There's some way that you pulse it with a certain kind of software, which kind of makes you wonder, can you make a microwave device? Like could you make pulses that are so directed that you could target individual neurons in a person's brain? To almost have like mind control. So we have directed pulse microwave devices, and now it sounds like that we can also pull energy out of the vacuum, so 0-point energy. Whew. I mean, if that's for real, if 0-point energy is for real, can you imagine? Probably the amount of energy you can pull out isn't that great, but This is so weird. This is consistent with the way Salvatore Pais describes his patients. He says the vacuum typically applies pressure to everything in space, which we experience as a limitation of light speed. Because of the pressure, it takes infinite energy to exceed light speed, similar to the way the aerodynamic drag leads to terminal velocity. Properly manipulated, the vacuum can be polarized, and this polarization inverts the pressure effect, causing the vacuum to instead push everything inside it to move faster and faster. Because the vacuum itself has gone from restricting your movement to encouraging it, the limitation of light speed no longer exists, and accelerating above C requires almost no energy. Yeah, except for what about the effects of time space from moving faster than the speed of light? That's okay. I think that's bullshit, but it was interesting to read nonetheless. Oh man, they're going up. I would have been okay if I was still in it. Well, if they go to 21, I'm going to be a little salty. I'm going to be a little salty if they go up to 21. But while the treasuries are kind of recovering here a little bit, the Japanese yen is not still. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at this now. My targets were probably bullshit. No, it is 21. 21 is correct. 5.24. Huh. No, they were correct. They were correct because it's so close. But the ones in the E-mini are wrong. Yeah. Okay. So what do we got in the E-mini? Come on. $67.53 on the downside, at least. In theory, if time were to compress downwards into enough, it would go through the fourth dimension, which makes 1 point, which is a black hole, so those could be correlated. Oh boy. Japan Industry Minister Akazawa explained the necessity of resuming shipping in the Strait of Hormuz and a need for coordinated oil reserves release. A coordinated oil reserve release would be beneficial because there is going to be a slight disruption. Not seeing too many like actionable headlines this morning though. Even though the market is acting like maybe there's something out there. But that may just be volatility. Like the S&P 500 is falling here. We're not seeing oil go up. So maybe those CTAs and so forth are overwhelming the indexes. Could we see flight to safety in the treasuries from that? That the equity treasury correlation becomes more important than the treasury oil correlation? Okay, so we got the existing home sales number was higher than expected. They're expecting a negative 0.77 and we got 1.7%. Treasuries don't seem to care. I would think that would be a net negative for the treasuries. And back down to 17. But we've actually seen a little bit of selling in the treasuries now, so now I'm definitely out. I came across a meme about the mother of all shorts, short squeezes. Yeah. Are these GameStop guys still hoping for that? Seriously? Okay. Andre, how are you? Hey, where you got? Because today we get to stay around until 11 o'clock Eastern time. I don't know. Were we just gonna sit here and chat? We could do some programming a little bit. I'm a little entranced by the treasury, bouncing back and forth here between 17 and 18. It's crazy there are GameStop guys. You know how randomly I like to bring up Beyond Meat as falling to 0? Multiple times I brought it up. It was after seeing someone still loving on it. Ugh. Yeah, honestly, the GameStop situation makes me angry. It objectively, how it happened, what happened, makes me angry, because I want more people to understand markets, and so that we can make better decisions in the society. And all it did was create a gambling culture and a cult that literally has no effing clue what they're doing, and they're still in it. They captured these people so completely, because that was a lot of money that went into GameStop. You could make a company be anything with that amount of funding that they had, their stock price. And then what did they do? The CEO sold into them. The CEO literally just made himself richer at the expense of all of these apes propping him up. And after him doing that countless times and not really doing anything with the company or moving it anywhere, they still support it. It's so sad. It is so sad. And these people, they didn't learn anything. We didn't improve the markets. It was in the end just a gigantic trap. I made a little bit of money on it. Frustrating. Andre says, happier than ever, got laid off. Will get 5 salaries as compensation. Tomorrow we'll leave for the Netherlands, and I am excited about tomorrow. Oh, interesting. Wait, you got 5 years salary as compensation, or like 5 months salary? I want 5 salaries. So the media is really badgering various people about how much longer will this Iran conflict go on, etc., etc. And Israeli officials are not commenting on it. Oh, okay. 5 months of salaries. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I mean, 5 months to do your thing. Although I would warn you, Andre, don't wait. Don't wait to start looking, because it's a brutal market out there, and it's probably going to take you more than 5 months to find a new job. And hopefully you get lucky and something else pops up right away, and then you have all of that extra cash to invest. Already applied to some position. I'm wondering if I should make a video that is like a more general finance video that is like what to do when you catch a windfall. Or if you're a trader and you just catch a really big winner, or maybe you're an employee at a tech company and you've made a ton on that company's stock, or you get an inheritance, because I'm starting to come across people in those situations and they don't know what to do. Like they catch a windfall like that. They want to take the profits on that and put it all into some other risky venture. No, that's probably not what you should do. But I guess it depends on your risk tolerance and everything. But, you know, when you're getting into hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Well, putting as much of that away in tax-advantaged accounts makes a huge difference, first of all. So max out your tax-advantaged accounts. If you have kids, make a 529 for every kid. And then you want to diversify, right? Like if you have $1 million in stock of some company, well, don't sell all of it. Keep a big chunk of it in there, because the company could continue to go up and up and up. You know, like Microsoft, it just continues to go up and up and up and up. But diversify, right? Take some of it out and just put it into an index fund. You can have like your own trading account or whatever, like an individual account that just has $100,000, $200,000 in it, and then you can borrow against that. So when next time you buy a car, you can just borrow against, basically never have to pay interest rates again. Interest-free loans on everything forever, right? Pay off all your debt, obviously, too. Like those are some. I don't know. To me, it seems like pretty simple, straightforward thing. But not everybody knows this stuff. So even though I feel like there should be resources to do that, I don't know if there's necessarily good resources out there for like, if you catch a windfall, how should you deal with it? All the way back to 16, huh? The treasuries are seeing net selling still too, so I'm definitely and across the board. So I'm definitely not going to try fading that. Let's see here. Was not here on Friday. The number looks rough. What do you think about tomorrow's data in context of the March 18th meeting, with oil pressuring the economy and the volatility regime changing? Yeah, well, so we've been saying for a long time that the labor market is not as strong as it appears. And I think that really finally came out into the open in the last report. It really was that the birth-death model, which is basically how new companies are being made all the time. And so they have to account for new companies that aren't going to be reporting right away. And so they make that adjustment in their model. And because of COVID and all of these other things, that birth-death model was like really way too high. And so they were always estimating more jobs being created than there actually were, and making huge adjustments. And every February is basically when they adjust the methodology. And when they change the methodology, my understanding is that they changed the birth-death model. And so now you are getting a number that I think is more accurate to the reality. There's to be revisions, and maybe the revision ends up being, making it not as bad. So I don't think that number, it means that like we're in dire straits per se, but it does show that, yeah, the labor market is rough. And whenever we have had in the past a labor market declining like this, it does lead to a recession. We're not seeing any of the other signs of a recession, but in the past, it does lead to a recession. And if you continue to play that out and then you add an oil shock on top of that, I think the risk of a recession right now is really high. Now, tomorrow, let's see here. What's tomorrow? I'm not sure which number you're talking about. This week. Oh, the CPI, yes. Well, consumer price inflation hasn't been too bad, so they're looking for a core CPI number of spot 2, and that sounds about right to me. If we get another PPI or PCE that's too high, then, well, that's a different problem, but because you really do get into this point where you can either save the economy and accept a large amount of inflation, or just accept the lower growth. And there are situations where we have to accept the lower growth. Right? Like if it's tariff one-time price increase, I think that you just say, well, we're going to have the inflation and that's all you can do. Right? Don't kill the economy over it. Oil price shock, that's a different issue though, because it could be high oil prices for a long time, and that's going to have follow through. And so if you don't raise interest rates, you run the risk of inflation becoming entrenched very easily. It's also the longest time after a yield inversion. Well, so I still say, and this goes all the way back to Janet Yellen. If you go and you look at Janet Yellen's last press conference, and she talked about this, that because of the treasuries being as high as they are, because historically they're still quite high. It used to be that in a situation like this, the treasuries would be trading below par. And what that results in is a negative carry, which is to say that there are, if you buy the treasury and you hold it for the whole time and then you factor in inflation, you might be losing money. And that's a risk that the people that carry these on their balance sheet for other reasons and stuff have to take into account. And so basically, because of the negative carry, it kind of makes the yield curve really flat anyways. Okay. So talking about the yield curve becoming inverted, it basically takes less for the yield curve to become inverted. So you can't necessarily look at the absolute level like of the 2 and 10 year yield curve as much as it is the change, because we're starting from a different baseline. You need a whiteboard? Well, but I can draw stuff, right? So you've got okay, so you got like this, right? You're selling the 5, you're buying the 10. Okay, that is flattening. That is flattening. So when you've got, what you tend to see is this chart that looks like this, that's like, oh, here's the yield curve. When it becomes inverted, that tends to be a recession. And then there'd be a little thing right here that'd be like, this is where the recession was. And when the recession happens, the yield curve steepens back out, right? But what happened was we had this, right? And then we had this. So it didn't take very much for the yield curve to become inverted. Didn't take very much for the yield curve to become inverted. And so now we're getting this. So the real signal is if the yield curve steepens back out. When the yield curve steepens out really, really quickly, that is like the risk off trade is happening and the market is expecting a recession. Okay. Do you think that 0-day to expiration options are playing a part in this? Because since they were launched, we have higher volatility regime overall without the directional downturn we've seen. Oh, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I feel like in some respects, market volatility is less than it used to be still. Even through this Iran war, the volatility, like for the treasuries, has still been pretty low. It is very interesting to me to see how popular 0-day to expiration options became, though. Because I just don't get it. It seems like keep that as far away from me as possible. I want nothing to do with it. But if you look on VIX or MOVE compared to Treasuries or ES now versus historically. Okay, hold on. I have this nice, lovely chart set up with a bunch of stocks that I was looking at Figure because I knew a guy at work that had some Figure stock, but VIX. CBOE volatility index, and then we're gonna remove all of these other data series. Okay, and then we're gonna go back. Okay, so actually, let's go to a 1 week chart. Okay, so like I started trading in 2010ish. Well, not 2010. Like I started watching the markets in 2008, and then I started trading futures in 2017. So like when you look at volatility over here, actually, let's do this. Let's add an SMA to it. Oh, that's a premium indicator. Where are the built-in? Oh, I've applied 2 indicators. I'm not looking at it correctly here. Settings, inputs. Let's make it more like a 200-day moving average, for instance. There you go. Okay. So, no, it's too hard to see visibility style. Let's make it more like gold. There we go. Okay. So, I remember volatility being like this. This was when I started trading and volatility was the worst. We got pretty good volatility post-COVID, but now it's kind of low again. So I guess the baseline is a little bit higher, but it's still pretty... yeah. But I guess it's higher than it was pre-2020. Maybe that's just the moving average. Maybe 200 is too... Because these are weeks, huh? So 200 weeks is probably too much. We should be 200 divided by 5. Should be... well, if it was divided by 10, then it would be 100. Then it's 5, then it's 50, right? There we go. I don't know. I guess volatility isn't terrible. But it's not like the golden days. Yeah, 200 weeks is 4 years. 50 weeks is more like a year. Oh, it's not 50. It should be 40. 40 would be a 200-day moving average. Well, what about move? Now, maybe I'm being too picky. This is saying we're about we're getting into the low volatility regime. Yeah, it is. Okay. Again, you look back over on here, right? Like, these were the days, man. Could make so much money trading treasuries back then. So maybe a little bit more. Although I don't know if we can for sure say that that's because of 0-day to expiration options. I was 8 in the financial crisis, so I can't say I remember them. Yeah. By the way, the 10 years got pretty good liquidity on it right now. But they just seem stuck at 17 now. I'm glad I'm out. Glad I'm out. I'm super, it's so weird sitting here right now and thinking, well, like, we started a war with Iran last week and we have no clue what's going on. And we're not sure if, like, it's over or if it's about to escalate. And the market's just kind of sitting here doing its thing. What? I think that decline in oil yesterday really took the fight out of some people. I think there was a bunch of big players that got slaughtered in that and are kind of like, all right, let's not touch anything for a few weeks. Pete Hegseth blew billions on fruit basket stands, chairs, and crab. What? Billions? What? Oil is still 20 higher than it did. Well, yeah, but I think all the speculators got slaughtered in that down move, man. It was bad. That decline yesterday was bad. I don't know why it always gives me that ding sound when I try and switch over here. That from 120 to 90, $30. That's like the largest decline in oil we've ever had, I think. All these guys, they all got wiped out. Because to me, doesn't make sense. The whole thing, like, all last week, it was like, oh, we're going to provide insurance. We're going to provide security and escrow for ships and all of these sorts of things. So why aren't ships transiting through this strait, right? It's not that they can't. They're just too afraid to right now. Even though Iran themselves have said that the strait is not closed. So what do you have to do to come in and convince people that everything is okay. And then Donald Trump just kind of an offhand comment to an individual reporter, we think we're almost done. Yeah. What? And that's what does it? Okay. It kind of seemed to me like the Secretary of War was kind of walking it back a little bit this morning. Market doesn't care now. What's with that? I think the only reasonable explanation is that oil was being driven mostly by speculators. And there was enough of a decline to kind of create a cascade short, lots of stops. Sorry, a cascade stop run. I think the insurers are too scared. Same with the same. Well, except for that the U.S. is going to provide wartime insurance. There was, my understanding is one ship did go through this morning. So I don't know where this goes. And Iran is still talking like, no, you can't back down. We're going to make you pay, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And I'm kind of torn. Like part of me thinks Donald Trump is just saying things. But part of me also thinks that the pain, the oil prices and everything are too much for him and that he wants to back off. Which I'm a warmonger, I guess. I think that'd be a bad decision. To if you go in and you attack Iran like this and then you back off, you're just giving them the opportunity to rebuild quickly. And you haven't actually solved the problem. That's going to look bad on the world stage. That's not going to be a good thing. So, yeah. Then on top of that, is Israel going to be satisfied? Because I think that kind of has to be a mutual decision, right? Have you seen the videos with Trump moving like he just heard the world? I'm not sure what you're talking about. A mutual decision is a bit too hopeful. Well, that's just what they've been saying this morning, is that there will be a joint decision. I think given the whole aim initially was regime change, it looks like they're more pissed off than anything. I don't know, man. I don't think that the new regime is going to stop trying to build nuclear missiles, do you? So I don't see how you can say mission accomplished. Well, you've done everything that you can from the air and you're not willing to do a ground campaign, then what else can you do? But I don't know if you've made anything better. Like, you as the administration can come in and say, these are what our goals are, and we matched our goals and try and call mission accomplished. But I think the world is going to say that if you didn't accomplish regime change, that the operation was a failure. They will carry on, unfortunately, just stall the program. Yeah, and I don't know if any of these attacks were able to do anything about the uranium that they do have. That's another thing. Didn't Midnight Hammer fix that last year? Well, so they thought that it destroyed the facilities, but I think what ultimately happened was that they pulled all of their uranium out of the facilities before it happened. And so it didn't really... the issue is that Iran already has enough uranium that if they further enrich it, they can create 11 bombs. So I think that Midnight Hammer really set them back. But because they still have the uranium, I think it's kind of, yeah. Well, it's not missing uranium. Like we kind of watched them take it out. And then more recently saw them start to ramp things back up, trying to like rebuild that facility and doing a lot in this other facility. So and I guess the concern is that I think that it's a serious threat. I would like to see it taken care of. And for those of us that feel that way, we kind of feel that the U.S. and Israel's hand has kind of been forced to some extent. Like, you just can't allow them to continue to push forever. At a certain point, it'll be too late. And then it would be really, really, really bad. And so that would maybe explain, like, the timing. But then if you go in and you don't actually accomplish the objective, then was that really actually the case? I don't think that you can argue that it was like a dire situation because you didn't solve it. Maybe you claimed that you did, but that's just politics and trying to save face and everything. Which is why I guess I'm really skeptical about this "we're almost done" thing. Because I still see some things kind of structured in a way that could suggest further escalation. Just based on, like, the geopolitics of it all. And have they really? I guess the other thing is that you would. I think that the expectation is that the people will stand up and begin to protest and take over. But have you done enough damage to the IRGC to do that? I don't think you have. So I don't like what I'm seeing, but we don't actually have enough information to really know the real situation either. So. Breaking new footage shows Iranian women's soccer team players flashing SOS signs on their phones through the windows of their bus at Sydney Airport. Did they really get sent back to Iran? If Australia sent them back to Iran, WTF, seriously. It looks like only 5 got asylum, and the rest are going back because their families are threatened if they don't. But if Australia just said no, they can't leave, then they wouldn't have been to blame. Given the U.S. is leaning towards mission accomplished for now, it sounds like they've done what they've achieved. However, it does not mean they can't restart later if required. Well, I think that is a good point. Like, you know, they start up at that facility, and maybe it's a thing that every 6 months we do a strike, just kind of like it was with Iraq before the second Iraq war, right? And the whole thing was like the first Iraq war was a little messy, and they could have gone in and finished it, and they decided not to because they were afraid that there'd be too much carnage. And then Iraq was in such a weakened state that when the United States went in the second time, it was a cakewalk. They won't have a nuke in one day? I don't know. I'm not gonna make any predictions like that. That sounds like the sort of thing where it's like, you're right. They're at least X years away from a bomb, and then the next day we find out that there was a nuclear test in Iran. Ugh. How dumb would we look, right? So I'm not gonna go that far. Hey, we're getting a pretty good rise here in the treasuries again. Not accompanied by Delta, so I don't think it's a trade. I don't think that I ever really had I think that the original premise for the trade and everything was good. It performed well, but clearly the flows are not there. So even if it does get up there, if I'm not seeing that rising cumulative delta, then it would, you know, if I'd stayed in it, it would have just been luck. Right? I'm trying to make a prediction about the order flow. So if the prediction about the order flow isn't true, even though I hit my target, that's luck. But for an incorrect prediction, we managed it pretty well. I guess this is another thing, is like, how many missile batteries does Iran have? And can Russia and China just rearm them really quickly? That's another problem. So that China might be able to help them ramp up really quick. And Trump was talking about like, oh, we're gonna help make sure that Iran is able to recover from this and all these sorts of things. I'm like, well, how are you doing that unless it's mission accomplished? If it's still a genocidal religious regime in Iran. Iran says they arrested 30 spies. Russia doesn't have enough. China could, yeah. Well, the thing was that China was sending in like mass amounts of supplies ahead of this. I think that was maybe a determining factor in why the U.S. got in, just to say we're pissed that China was doing that. Who spies? Iran says that they found 30 spies. I'm using financial juice for my news squawk. And Twitter. I've got the Twitter up too. Twitter's not as effective as it used to be honest. Iran's intelligence ministry arrested 30 spies over the past few days. That's crazy. I mean, as far as I understand, Iranian government was just completely and utterly infiltrated. But 30 sounds like a lot. That could be a significant change too. It's that guy that's always on TikTok that like everybody just clips the videos of interviews with him that was in the CIA. I'd be interested to hear what he thinks about that headline. Yeah, 30 less sources of insider info. I bet you they probably still have more. But will we reach? I mean, we might. I feel like maybe we have a good chance of reaching 21 now. The Japanese yen is going back up, so it seems like it is yen correlation that is driving us at the moment the most. So maybe that's why it's going up without the cumulative delta. We could get there, but will it happen before I leave? Is the question. John Curie Cow. I don't know how he's. Yeah, that guy. I'd be interested to hear what he thinks about that headline. Is 30 a significant development, or is it kind of like, yeah, but we've got way more? I watched a video of his on TikTok that I was just like really interested in the story. And it always cuts off before you get to the interesting parts of the story, right? So now TikTok shows me tons of John Kirikow videos. But you never get to hear the end of his stories ever. So I guess I watch a lot of John Kirikow, but I've never watched a full interview to really know the point of any of his stories. Kirikow. Oh, you're not sure either. I've never heard him say his name. That's weird. So if I could speak to John Kirikow, I would ask him about what their involvements in financial markets are. Because in a lot of this scenario, he's like, let's draw out a scenario and we're going to do this. We decide that we need this economic report. Why? Why do you need that economic report? And it makes me think about the Epstein thing. Like, people say like maybe he was an informant or something like that. I think that he was a trader and he was trafficking in information to anybody that he could to try and get as much information as he possibly could and make trades off of it. So are intelligence agencies involved in markets to some extent? Do they maybe like give you, like you're an informant, they want to pay you, and how are they going to pay you? They tell you, well, it's this stock is going to be like this. So you go and, or the jobs number is going to be really bad. So just sell futures, and then you make tens of millions of dollars, and they tell the CFTC to look the other way. Is that what happens? John Kirikow became a billionaire? I don't think he became a billionaire. But when the CIA basically has unlimited amounts of money, and the people working for you can get paid a lot. What would be interesting, this is another one of those things like alternative lives of stuff. Oh, Epstein, yeah. He became a billionaire somehow. Well, but he did work in the industry. I don't know. Alternative lives of Seth, where like computers didn't exist or something like that. What would I have gone and done? Well, I could work for the CIA. I hear that they like Mormons. Probably too old now, right? Unless they need an informant in the day trading community, I would be more than happy to oblige them. No, unfortunately, I'm not privy to any kind of stuff that people would be interesting in the day trader community like that. I bet you maybe there is a person or two out there that like is an informant for the FBI. They infiltrate the inner circle of these gurus, right? But that's not me. I'm my own influencer that basically explains to people why all that stuff is bullshit. If I suddenly made 1 or 2 million, it would absolutely get the bank and federal attention. How did a poor person like me make money? But turning a million into a billion, that's easy, right? Yeah. I don't know. And then on top of that, you've got you're managing other people's money anyways, for giving investment advisor advice. I guess one of the reasons I was thinking about it is like, I've spoken to more than one person lately that I'm kind of like, you know what? That I think they could use some investment advisor advice. But I'm too lazy to do all of this stuff to create an investment advisor and register it and do all of that thing to start an investment advisor business. But maybe I shouldn't be so lazy. Maybe I need to just go and do it. And, you know, I have like maybe 3 or 4 clients to begin with, and then you can just run with it from there. Could become a thing. And I would just charge like $50 for like an analysis report. You tell me all of your investments and then your situation, and I can kind of tell you what to do with it. I kind of miss when I was obsessed with we could create our own hedge fund and like let everybody invest in it. I've kind of given up on that idea. I don't think it's a good idea anymore. But I loved having that thing to drive me. I guess we got the trading system now, and that's a good one. And we get some time to work on it. Well, we spent 1 hour just yapping. I didn't go into it, but tonight, between 5 and 6, when I would normally be driving home, I will be pulling in those proto files and making a connector and see if I can connect to Rhythmic with my Rust binary. Because if I get that part to work, oh baby, we can do stuff. Do we even have enough alpha to even class it as a hedge fund? Yeah, like that's the thing, is that because I don't really think that the idea that I had as the basis for a hedge fund wasn't the best, because I just don't think that you would get enough money from it. And then even if I did have something, how would I raise money for it? Because I don't have access to that many millionaires, right? So I'm not out there looking for a strategy. I think that if I thought that I was going to have that much money and I put a lot of work into building a hedge fund strategy like that, could probably make a pretty good one. But it would take a long time. It would take a couple of years and a lot of development and some people and stuff like that. Like, I guess what I'm saying is I think I have all of the pieces to make a successful hedge fund. Like a background that would be really useful, because I understand both the business side of the financial industry, the strategy side of the financial industry, the programming side, right? So I would be able to put together a pretty good organization, I think. But it would probably be like, you know, you put together a team and maybe after a few years, you're able to get something going, right? Kind of like how Renaissance technology started to some extent. So, but I don't think that's my path. I think that if I ever become a millionaire or anything like that, aside from just saving it up, because I will become a millionaire someday just from my savings. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point. But you know, if I become exceedingly rich before I retire, it's either going to be from the YouTube channel blowing up or from selling the software, I think. And we'll continue to do better and better with the trading. I don't think that that's ever going to be enough to make you a millionaire, even if you're really good at it. But I have all of the education and the licenses and everything to do it. The opportunity ever came up. So I kind of feel like I was inspired to do it. At some point, it's going to become relevant. I'm poking around here to see if there's any other headlines that have popped up that we should talk about before we get going. But it looks like that it's another day that's just kind of like, who knows what's happening. The S&P 500 over the last hour has been on a pretty good sustained rise. The upside of this is 68.44. Yep, 68.44. So they still got some room to go. Beyond that, though, it might be tough for them to go much further. Stocks jump and oil tumbles after IEA calls extraordinary meeting to decide on SPR release. That's what's been going on in the last hour. But it didn't result in meaningful upside for the treasuries, so that's concerning. Goldman Trader says, use this bounce to reset downside trades. Wait, okay. Here you go, Iran and Trump incentives. The USA. Publicly, Trump has said that they won't make a deal without Iran's unconditional surrender and has floated the idea of sending ground troops in. He has used the feared words for as long as it takes. But of course, Trump does not always mean what he says. Despite hardline overtures, Trump has always been against prolonged combat, particularly with the fast-approaching midterm election, which he appears to be losing. An extended battle with Iran is undesirable because it threatens higher inflation, a weak global image. He already failed on Russian diplomacy and needs a win, and mixed messaging on objectives. Voters despise forever wars, and congressional challenges against his war powers. In Venezuela, despite kidnapping Maduro, the same regime largely remains in power today. It's ahead of the Hydra situation, but as long as the regime provides the U.S. with oil, Trump appears to be satisfied. Therefore, a minimal... Is that really the case? I had not heard that. Put simply, Trump wants a quick resolution with minimal American casualties. He cares more about the appearance of change than actual substance. This mirrors his MO of tariff threats back in April, which were also posturing. So I'm not sure about this, his take on that. Because I kind of think that if you go into Iran, you do strikes, and then you end it, that you're worse off in the end. Like if people feel that it didn't accomplish anything, then it just makes the administration look worse, and it's just going to do worse for you in the midterms. If you really push all the way in and solve the problem, of course, you have to do it in a way that the public is behind you, right? And war can actually really galvanize people behind you. So I don't think it's as simple as this guy is making it out to be. Let's read what he says about Iran. During previous negotiations, the regime's demands were irreconcilable, so now they are bombing neighbors in the hope of forcing concessions. Striking Gulf assets and Hormuz tankers hurts U.S. allies/economy. Iran is hoping the costs are high enough that partners like Saudi or China pressure the U.S. to negotiate. Yeah, and if you give in on that as the U.S., like, where does that put us? Okay. The U.S. and Israel together have hit more than 1,000 Iranian targets in 2 days. For all intents and purposes, Iran's war capabilities have been neutered. They hold the world's oil supplies hostage, but there's little else they can do. A lot of bark, no bite. But the Iranian regime is vast, with sprawling layers of religious authority and armed branches. Removing Khamenei only accelerated his looming death. It did a little to unseat the deeply embedded institutions that support the regime. Even as the U.S. mows down newly replaced leaders, the armed forces will not just go away. This means lasting regime change is unlikely. Unfortunate news for Trump and Iranian citizens. And yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that we knew that before going into. So if they thought that it was going to happen, I think that was a mistake on their part. Unfortunately, the regime is not... Oh, fortunately, the regime is not looking to destroy the world. They merely want self-preservation. I don't think that's the case, actually. I think that they want to genocide Israel. Like any dictatorship, they seek to retain control over policy and military proxies, their population, ideally sanctions relief as well. They will likely give up nuclear arms to get it. Yeah, okay, it's been how long? And they haven't given that up? But maybe the attacks did change the calculus. The next time they come to negotiations, they'll be much more amenable. Therefore, Iran's strategy is pretty clear. Accelerate attacks to exert max pressure on Trump to end the war. Despite the bombings Iran wants to settle, this is an existential moment for the regime that has already suffered a heavy blow. Diplomacy is the only way out. Yeah, I think so. I think that they do kind of have, like, I don't know if they're going to accelerate attacks, but they're certainly going to talk big. For sure. For sure. Well, yep, 66.43. Kind of approaching it. We'll see if they get there. But it's time for me to get going. So it was fun having a slightly longer stream, wasn't it good? Certainly, I felt better, even though we did end that trade before 8 o'clock. I felt better taking a trade, knowing that I had more time. It was a sim trade. Didn't work out. It's okay. Would like to do some more programming, but we can do that in the evening. Should have some time tonight. So, oh, and I need to edit my video. I have a video when I started editing it, but I didn't finish it. And I got to do my taxes. I got too many things to do, guys. All right, guys. I should get going. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay excellent.